Allen Company, 47 years young and a proud sponsor, wishes OOIDA all the best as you celebrate 50 years.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is limiting the number of days that regulations such as the hours of service would be suspended during an emergency. OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs Jay Grimes joins us to discuss that and the continuing contest for a new Speaker of the U.S. House. A woman truck driver is using her truck and trailer to bring awareness to missing and murdered indigenous people. Landline Now's Ashley Blackford speaks with her about her efforts and why this message is an important one to spread. And finally, what sort of advice would you give four-wheelers if you had the chance? One trucker recently did just that, writing a blog that's going viral. We'll hear from Ron Mayes of Eureka, Kansas. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today. We told you recently that FMCSA was tightening up the regulations surrounding emergency declarations. Now we know what that timeline looks like. A final rule publishing Friday will impose limits on the amount of regulatory relief granted to motor carriers and truck drivers, providing direct assistance after a regional emergency declaration is issued. As it stands right now, the duration of automatic regulatory relief is 30 days. Starting December 12th, it'll be 14 days. That's a compromise of sorts for FMCSA, which had previously proposed a 5-day window. Still, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association takes issue with the change. Jay Grimes, OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, questions the need for revising the emergency regulations in the first place. He says that's because the agency has repeatedly acknowledged that there is no evidence of the current emergency exemption rules leading to less safe roadways. Grimes adds that state governments and motor carriers should have every resource made available to them to address and assist with emergency response efforts. In addition to the shorter window, there are additional reporting requirements with the new guidelines. FMCSA will accept petitions for reconsideration for 30 days. The final rule is scheduled to take effect 60 days after the notice is published in the Federal Register on Friday. Thousands more UAW workers walked off the job Wednesday amid a strike that is nearly into its second month. The United Auto Workers, in a social media post, said 8,700 workers at Ford's truck plant in Kentucky, one of the company's largest and most profitable, have now joined the strike. The UAW said the expansion was in response to Ford's refusal to, quote, make further movement in bargaining. The move signifies a new turn in the contentious negotiations against Ford, Stellantis, and General Motors. In all, UAW now has more than 30,000 members on strike at half a dozen assembly plants and dozens of distribution facilities across the country. The cost of buying a new truck is about to go way up. That's according to ACT Research, which said in a report that rising labor costs combined with stricter emission standards and other factors will drive prices up. ACT expects that medium and heavy-duty vehicles will be up to 14% more expensive by the time the EPA's Clean Trucks rule goes into effect in 2027. Those other factors driving prices up include other labor challenges, something ACT President and Senior Analyst Kenny Vease said could end up forcing the industry to cut production next year and lay off workers, and if that happens, Vease said, supply chain integrity could be compromised. ACT believes manufacturers will be at least partially successful in convincing customers to begin pre-buying trucks next year ahead of the EPA's 2027 regulations, which should help moderate runaway demand into 2026. But the company added doing that comes with a risk of prolonging the freight cycle downturn. The Federal Highway Administration is making $61 billion available to states for infrastructure needs. The money is coming from the bipartisan infrastructure law by way of 12 programs. It'll be funneled toward various projects that build, rebuild, or improve highways and bridges across the nation. The $61 billion going out is nearly $18 billion more than went out through the programs the year before the infrastructure law went into effect. A federal court in Ohio has ordered Total Quality Logistics, or TQL, to provide overtime pay to thousands of employees. It's the latest and perhaps final chapter in a wage lawsuit that dates back to 2010. A judge ruling that TQL and its CEO Kenneth Oakes are liable for unpaid overtime wages for more than 4,500 workers. Unlike TQL account executives who were paid on a commission-based system, trainees and junior account executives were on a salary-based pay system. According to the complaint, trainees were paid less than $38,000 a year and were not eligible to earn any additional income, despite being strongly encouraged to work up to 60 hours a week, including on weekends and holidays. As far as damages, it's now up to TQL and the plaintiffs to come to an agreement. It just got a bit easier to get or renew an Ohio commercial driver's license. The Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles says a number of improvements to the online process are going into effect. They include an online renewal of a CDL and testing changes that include real-world scenarios. An extension of the commercial learner's permit has also been increased from 6 months to 1 year. According to the Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles, there are more than 380,000 active commercial driver's licenses in the state. The Bureau said the recent changes will save Ohioans trips to deputy registrar locations and time standing in line. Georgia's Department of Public Safety just put a trucker on blast over social media. In a Facebook post, officials said a trooper recently stopped a commercial motor vehicle for an inspection and discovered 15 violations, 7 of which were out-of-service violations. The driver also placed out of service for not having an electronic logging device. The Georgia DPS said the driver told the motor carrier compliance officer he knew he needed an ELD and that his trailer was in poor condition, but decided to get on the road anyway. The post was meant as a warning of sorts, punctuated by the final sentence, which said that officers will continue working hard to take unprofessional drivers off of Georgia roadways. A Wisconsin bill is calling for the creation of a commercial driver training grant program. There are currently more than 600 training entities listed on FMCSA's training provider registry that have locations in Wisconsin. The bill sponsor said the grant program is necessary, though, as it would increase the number of commercial drivers licensed in the state. He added that new federal guidelines have raised the standard for who can offer CDL training, which in turn has made it harder for smaller employers who used to be able to train drivers on site. The bill would limit grant amounts awarded to up to 50% of the training costs, or $3,000, whichever is less, for each person trained. Expect increased traffic throughout Utah this weekend. That's a message from DOT officials there as they plan for hundreds of thousands of visitors coming to the state to view a partial solar eclipse. The eclipse itself will only last about 4 minutes on Saturday morning, but the Utah DOT expects the effects will last much longer on roadways in the southern and central parts of the state. Traffic delays are expected in the Richfield and Mexican Hat areas. UDOT is warning drivers to prepare for delays on 4 roadways in particular, Interstates 15 and 70 and U.S. routes 89 and 191. And even though officials are warning people not to park on the shoulders of highways to catch the eclipse, that possibility is also there. And finally, Travel Centers of America has 2 new locations in 2 different states, adding dozens of truck parking spots in the process. The first in northeast Kansas. The new TA Express store is opening up in Fairview at the site of the former Burt's Express at US 75 and West 1st Street. The location has 40 truck parking spots and 3 diesel bays. Then in Glen Rio, New Mexico, another new location. This one is a TA Travel Center with 175 truck parking spots. It's off historic Route 66 or Interstate 40 at exit 369. This is the former Russell's Travel Center we told you about recently that was sold to TA. The New Mexico and Kansas locations bring TA's total number of travel centers nationwide to 293. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Next, I'll talk with Jay Grimes about a change in regulations for emergency declarations. Ashley Blackford reports on an effort to bring awareness to missing and murdered indigenous people, and I'll find out what advice a trucker had for four-wheelers. We'll be back in a moment. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Attention all truckers, Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I want to talk to you about those dreaded tax problems. I know you want to keep on trucking and not even think about them, but let's face it, they're not going away all on their own. You need professional help. I've been helping truckers put their tax problems in the rearview mirror for years. I can help you too. Call me now for a free consultation at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com. It's like I always say, keep your eyes on the road, I'll keep mine on the IRS. 888-557-4020.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
The contest for a new Speaker of the U.S. House continues. Welcome back to Landline Now. This is Regulatory Roundup, and I'm your host, Mark Reddick. I'm joined, as always, by OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. Jay, thanks for joining me.
Good to be with you, Mark.
So let's kind of speak broadly here. Where are we at right now, Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday afternoon, we are still in a holding pattern. There is no permanent Speaker of the House that has replaced Kevin McCarthy since he was voted out last week. Yesterday, the House Republican Conference met behind closed doors, and from that meeting, they voted current Majority Leader Steve Scalise of Louisiana to be placed in nomination for Speaker. It was kind of a two-man race between Mr. Scalise and Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. Scalise won with 113 votes to Jordan's 99 votes. And that advanced him out of the caucus. The problem is that to become Speaker, you need to win a majority vote on the House floor, which would, given the narrow margins between the slim Republican majority, they would need just about every Republican to vote for one person to win that vote. And right now, Mr. Scalise has not won over the amount of necessary supporters of Jim Jordan, or there's still some people holding out for Mr. McCarthy to return to there. So kind of still waiting to see what happens. The next step should be a vote on the floor for Speaker, but not sure exactly when that could take place. So a lot of contingency possibilities are kind of up in the air. House Republicans are again meeting today to try and see what the next path forward will be.
I take it there's a lot of politicking in the background trying to line up votes behind Steve Scalise.
No doubt. We're hearing Jordan would nominate Steve Scalise, but some of the factions who wanted McCarthy out and who didn't want to see Scalise, who was kind of next in line in leadership to automatically emerge, are really voicing their opinions and have indicated they will not vote for Mr. Scalise on the floor. So a lot of minds are going to have to be changed, and in the meantime, it still creates this stalemate in the House of Representatives, where legislation cannot move on the House floor until there's a Speaker in place. And we've heard some talk now today that they might make some rule changes to provide the Speaker pro tempore, who is currently Patrick McHenry, some more power to at least be able to conduct business until they can nominate and vote on a long-term, or who knows how long they'll last, as Speaker of the House. And the backdrop being we have another short-term spending bill in place, and that government funding deadline clock is ticking now through November 17th. So still a lot of moving parts and still no real indication to how this is all going to be resolved.
You mentioned that they're talking about maybe giving the temporary speaker some power to conduct business, but assuming they don't do that, what happens if they're unable to agree on a new speaker? I mean, how does the House operate, or does it?
It could not operate in terms of enacting legislation. Now, legislation can still be introduced, committee hearings can still take place, but no measures can be moved and voted on on the House floor. So it's kind of leaves the whole of Congress in a real stalemate where they cannot function as intended, which creates a lot of problems and a lot of questions and a lot of confusion for the most part right now. So we'll see how long they'll kind of stay in this holding pattern, or if they're going to, make some moves to be able to function, at least in some part, until the speaker race can kind of come to a head.
What are some of the issues, especially issues that truckers would care about, that are kind of stuck in a holding pattern until this is resolved?
Yeah, there's a couple things. Certainly the truck parking bill, which has been approved by the House Transportation Committee, and certainly in our perspective is a top candidate to make it to the House floor, can't go anywhere. One of the bills that was expected to come up within the next couple weeks here, the House Transportation Appropriations Funding Bill, which includes a provision to block FMCSA from advancing any speed limiter mandate. That bill cannot get voted on or approved by the House. We're still we're in the process of reintroducing the GOT Truckers Bill, which would repeal the Fair Labor Standards Act motor carrier exemption that prevents drivers from being paid overtime. So again, a lot of legislation that we feel would be helpful to the trucking industry in getting passed by the House of Representatives remains stalled until we can come up with a solution here with the speakership.
Okay. Let's move on to another topic here. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration is imposing limits on the amount of regulatory relief that's granted when a regional emergency declaration is issued. We're talking about relief from the regulations here. What kind of relief?
Yeah, this is regulatory relief that used to be pretty much all parts of the Federal Motor Carrier Regulations 390 through 399, covered a lot of ground where, given these regional emergency declarations, truckers could take steps to operate and get where they need to go to deliver emergency supplies and emergency assistance. This final rule that's going to be published today and go into effect starting in mid-December, the rule narrows the scope of emergency relief to really focus on hours of service, which makes sense. That's typically what drivers are looking for here in these emergency situations. One thing where we had a little problem, especially in the initial proposal, was reducing the kind of automatic 30-day window of emergency relief down to 5 days. We felt that was far too short to operate efficiently and to make sure truckers knew when the emergency relief was going to be in effect. The final rule, FMCSA, has now extended that back out to a 14-day window, which is an improvement, but still think can be a little problematic compared to the 30-day window that, by all analysis, has worked efficiently and effectively for as long as these rules have been in place. And even in this final rule, FMCSA repeatedly acknowledges that there's no data indicating that the current emergency relief structure has led to any degradation of safety. So we're still kind of question what was the need for these revisions and amendments, and still have a little concerns if this 14-day window is going to be sufficient in some of these emergency scenarios that last longer than 14 days. So on one hand, glad to see the 5-day window as originally proposed has been extended to 14 days. Still kind of questioning what the motive behind these changes was in the first place.
You mentioned the change from 30 down to 14 in this rule. There were some other changes involved there. Could you go kind of give us an idea of what some of the other changes to the rule were that FMCSA made? Yeah.
So besides narrowing the scope of the regulatory relief to really focus on the hours of service sections, there's going to be some changes if and when FMCSA has to extend the relief period from 14 days. So There's now going to be a dedicated email inbox for extensions or modification requests of the emergency relief. And then the plan here is that once that 14-day window is extended, any motor carriers still using the relief in the extension are going to have to submit some reporting requirements to allow FMCSA to really gather some more additional data to figure out to what extent motor carriers use the emergency relief windows. They're also eliminating provisions that provide automatic regulatory relief for other elements such as medical certification for drivers, and then also really looking at whether it's labor shortages, part shortages. We saw COVID that the emergency relief really got flexible to allow the kind of broad emergency exemptions to apply for non-kind of weather-related scenarios. It sounds like now they're going to have a separate exemption process for some of those scenarios, and really it's going to be strictly those kind of weather-related emergency situations for the new rules.
There were other groups that expressed concerns about the initial rule that FMCSA proposed, including some state DOTs. Have any of them at this point spoken out regarding this new proposal, the final rule, and offered their opinion on whether it works or not?
Yeah, I haven't seen specific comments in response to the final rule, but looking back on the proposal, I think some state representations and associations were worried that this was going to take away the flexibilities for state DOTs to operate swiftly and effectively. And I think they commented on that 30-day window specifically. They actually wanted that 30-day window to be extended if necessary. And now we've got it reduced down to 14 days. So it does take a little power and flexibility away from these governors and state DOTs to act as kind of as they need to with this 14-day window now in place and with this more targeted relief in place. So it's going to be interesting to see the first few emergency scenarios that come up in December if everything goes as smoothly as it has in past situations.
Okay. One last topic here, Jay. Later this month, the Women of Trucking Advisory Board will hold its final meeting before submitting recommendations to FMCSA. What is the topic for their final meeting here?
Yeah, the final meeting is going to examine ways in which trucking companies, nonprofit organizations, training and education providers, as well as trucking associations, coordinate their operations and their functions to support women for pursuing careers in trucking. And that's really been kind of the focus on the establishment of the Women in Trucking Advisory Board throughout all their meetings, which have been conducted over the past year or so since the provision in the 2021 Highway Bill was enacted, really looking at ways to improve recruitment and retention of women in the trucking industry. They've held a number of meetings focusing on that. This last meeting is going to cover looking at how private sector trucking companies and associations really try to focus on that. And then, as you mentioned, this will be the final meeting, and then they'll start coming up with their official report to the Department of Transportation, to Congress, which is really going to make, I think, some substantive recommendations on policies that federal regulators and Congress can take to make sure that women are really being supported on throughout the trucking industry.
Okay. Well, Jay, we've run out of time, but thank you very much for all the information. We sure appreciate it.
All righty. Thank you, Mark. We'll see you next time.
I've been talking with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. And folks, if you want to learn more about these topics, just go to landline.media. We'll be back in a moment. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
Firestone tires are for more of everything. more miles for every tire dollar, and more confidence in your fleet. At Firestone, we help fleets save with dependable value. Find your local Firestone dealer today at firestonetire.com/dealer.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2023 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
When it's time to overhaul your truck engine, help protect it by insisting on a genuine Vibratech TVD crankshaft damper. Heavy duty, absolute premium quality, and they're made right here in the USA. Find a dealer at vibratechtvd.com.
Landline Now, welcome back. A female truck driver is delivering an important message to the public with her truck and trailer. Elizabeth Johnson joins me now to explain.
Oh, it's the beautifulest truck out here. I have a gray truck with pink decals of a medicine wheel and feathers. I got a donkey on it, and she's looking back at you, and it's a representation of who I am. And then I've got this beautiful trailer with all my Winnebago, Nebraska Ho-Chunk women. They're all my relatives. They're in regalia. And that theme of, the missing, murdered indigenous women are what they're representing. That's what I'm representing with that platform.
And when did you get the truck and get into trucking?
Okay, so, back in 2001, my first husband, I had been with him since I was 21. When he turned 40, he decided he wanted to have a family, and I was done making families. I had already had 4 boys and was done. So he put me through school. And when I got my license, he looked at me and told me, he said, now you can go anywhere in the world and take care of yourself. I didn't know what he meant then, and I didn't have a clue. And I just kind of smiled at him and put my license away because that's what he wanted me to do, was go to school. So I did. But then I shortly got separated with him and kind of lost my mind there for a while, went down a really bad path, and then pulled myself back up and started going into construction. So I was in construction up until 2017 when I left my second toxic relationship. I was married to this man for 9 years. And then when I made that decision to leave him, I believe, this is my belief only, that God came in and opened up all my doors for me, because one day I heard a voice say, you'll look for a truck. And I was like, no, I don't even have no money. And it kept bothering me, look for a truck. And I'm like, I don't have any money. Why would I look for a truck? Arguing with this spirit that's talking to me. And I gave in. I looked for a truck, and I talked the banker into giving me a loan. And this is a business that don't give business loans. But I told her, I said, I've got this brand new Silverado that I bought, and you're going to end up taking it from me. I said, or you can let me make a trade on this semi, $11,000 different, and I can make some money and a livelihood with it. And she thought about it, and so she had nothing to lose, I guess she thought, and she did it. And I believe that lady got fired. That's what I believe. I believe she was asked to step down because she did that for me. I can't prove that, but she no longer works at that company. And then a similar story, like after I got my first truck, I worked for 2 years hauling other people's trailers around. And then I really felt like I was being cheated because I had individuals telling me they were getting like $200 or $300 more money per load, same load that I was getting. And I thought, why are they doing me like that? So I got really frustrated one day, and I was praying. I started pounding on my leg, and I was like, God, I want my own trailer so I can do my own business. And all of a sudden that voice came and it's like, call Lincoln. And I was like, nope, I don't want to call Lincoln. No, I don't want to call Lincoln. It kept saying, call Lincoln. And this was in the middle of COVID when there was absolutely no trailers, and trailers were skyrocketing high, and nobody was manufacturing nothing. And I finally said, okay, I called Lincoln Freightliner, and they're like, oh yeah, we got a trailer for you. And so they referred me on to a guy that called me up and said, hey, I got a good referral. They said, you're a good customer, that you needed this trailer. And I'm like, yes, I want it. Same scenario. I called the bank, the young lady that gave me that loan, no money down. She financed it for me. Again, they don't do business loans. And a few months later, she was gone. But that's not part of the story. But I'm just saying that's kind of what I think and feel is like two individuals may have sacrificed their life for me to have my livelihood in my company. And now I'm at risk. I'm at risk of losing it all. So I've been in it since 2017 up until now. I'm still presently trucking. and I hope to see it through to the end. I mean, I want 20 trailers with Native American women on it representing, and Native American men, and perhaps even children, but my message is to stop killing, stealing, and beating and murdering individuals, and leaving them, specifically indigenous women, alongside the road or burying them, because we don't get media like everybody else does. And, when the feds get called in to do an investigation, they call and talk to a couple people, and, it never goes no further than that. And, we're tired. We got people missing and they're unaccounted for. And this has been happening for years and years and years.
For those listening, can you explain what the trailer looks like?
Okay, so it's very colorful. It's gray and pink. I have my niece, Jaleesa, at the front. She's in a red regalia with her feather. She has a red hand over her face. That red hand represents humanity. And, let's back up. The hand itself is humanity. It's a symbol for humanity. And in this case, an indigenous human being or human life. The red is, a money for success or turmoil and loss. And in this case, it's for a missing, murdered individual, a Native person. And, it being over our mouth, saying, we're not going to be silenced no more. We're going to speak out. And, that's what we're doing. That's what this trailer is doing. It's letting people know that this is a problem in our world and it needs to stop and we need more attention. And next to her, it says invisible no more. And it says for 500 years, countless Native women have gone missing. And that number is even higher. I just chose 500. I also got murdered, missing, indigenous. It's missing, murdered. But I put murdered, missing because I'm just me by myself. I don't want to represent a government agency or a nonprofit agency and have it attached to me and I do something wrong or something goes wrong. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I put murdered, missing instead of missing, murdered. And then on down the line, I've women for my reservation that are just posing in their regalia. And, to me, those women are beautiful. Those are beautiful women. And, all Native people are beautiful. And, they're out here expressing, those girls are with me wherever I go, and they're expressing this topic, to stop, do something about it.
I was just curious, what was your reaction when you first saw the trailer all put together?
Ooh-wee. So let me say this. My sister, Sheila, died. I had took my trailer and delivered it and then came home. And when I got home, she was in the hospital with COVID. And she passed away with complications of COVID. And it breaks my heart she didn't get to see it because I know she would be my number one fan. She was my best friend. We every day talked and had encouraging words. And so I was already in a place of emotion. But, we put her in the ground, and the day I took off to go get my trailer. And when I got there, it was like just beginning to be daylight. And I took that corner, and I wept. Ooh, I get emotional. I wept because that was the most beautiful thing I ever saw in the world. And I did that. That was what I did. That was my mission. That was my choice. That was my decision. That was my money. That was my energy, my hard work, and all my suffering. Put that beautiful trailer together so I could go throughout the world, or not the world, but the United States, and I could spread this story about my people, about my women. I'm a victim myself. I mean, I never went missing, but I could have. I very well could have been one of them women that were missing, the life I was living and the abuse that I endured in my life from childhood up to adulthood. I could have been a statistic as well. And so it's very dear to me. I've become an older woman now, and I've come into my maturity, and, that's not why women are here. That is not why we're placed in this world. It's not to be abused. I mean, we give life, and we nurture life, and we should be treated with much respect. We are one of the creatures in the world that can bleed and never die because of it. Men can't do that. That's our job. And yet we get treated so second class and so physically abused. It's not right.
What questions do people usually ask you when they see you at a truck stop or at a loading dock?
I get a lot of praise. A lot of people will look at it and they'll give me thumbs up or tell me I love your trailer. I get a lot of compliments on its beauty. I get a lot of compliments on the message itself. It's very powerful, and, continue on your journey. I've had a couple guys, look at me and they kind of make a snooty face and be like, well, who's killing them or who's taking them? And I just if I knew the answers to that, it wouldn't be an issue,
Exactly.
If I could see who was taking my people, I would stop you.
Mm-hmm.
I would stop you. And, it's kind of left at that. I've had people track me down and follow me into, gas stations and be like, I seen your trailer. It's breathtaking. It's overwhelming. Can you explain it? So I would explain to you, to them, just like I did you, what the hand means and what my neat. I let them know they're my family members, and we're out here trying to spread the word about this topic, and we want it to stop. And when we're done talking, they're like, "Oh my God, it's so beautiful," and they let me know that they appreciate it. And some walk away with a smile, and just some walk away speechless. But most of the time, it's always a positive response.
Mm-hmm.
As well as going down the road. I mean, when I go down the road, I'll have somebody sitting here in my peripheral, and then I finally okay, they're not moving, so I'll look at them, and they got a camera, and they're videoing me, and I give them a smile and a wave, and then they shoot on down the road. I mean, that to me I love that. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that tells me they appreciate what I'm doing. And this is a one-of-a-kind trailer, and it's the first. It's the very first mobile billboard in the world. In the world, and I quote, you can quote that, in the world, because I'm pretty sure if somebody else has this, they could have mine. They could take mine from me because they don't. You know what I mean? No one's done this, and I'm proud of it, and I want so badly to see it through. I want 20 more trailers. I want to get out of trucking and just dispatch my trailers and spread the word and grow big. And that, as well as saying that, I am a woman trucker out here, so if a woman was ever to approach me in need, I will help her. I will put her in my truck. I will call the police. I'll be like, we're going down this immediate road. Come get us. When you get behind me, I'll pull over. But until then, I'm going to keep rolling with this person until you bring safety to her.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want nobody beating on women. I don't want nobody being killed. I don't want nobody being trafficked. But, if you're seriously being trafficked and abused and you need safety, you can come here. This is a safe haven. My companion is a 135-pound Crescent Canario, and I'm sure she'll do her part to protect as well.
How important is it to, like you said, you have people coming up and asking questions. How important is it that you are spreading that awareness? Because some people don't realize that this is such a major issue in America, in Canada, and I'm sure in many other areas.
Every reservation has this issue. Every border has this issue. Every race has this issue. It's not just us Native Americans. That's just the topic I chose because I am Native American and it's dear to me. And all my life, I've seen how indigenous people have been mistreated. So that's why I've chosen it. But I'm saying it's happening to all women of the world, and it shouldn't be. It should not be happening. But it is the most important message. Right next to child molestation and, children are being trafficked as well. And so those two topics are to be the number one topics of the world, then next to starvation. Why do we got children being homeless when I could go on a dander about that? But you know what I mean? It's it is so important, and it needs to continue. It needs to get bigger until it stops, and it may never stop, but at least, before I put my trailer out on the road, there was one billboard that I saw, and I've gone to all the states except for the West Coast. I've never been on the West Coast. And I've only seen one billboard of one woman, and that sign was so small, you had to get right on it and barely see it. It was the missing, murdered indigenous with a hand on the face picture, that just one.
Wow.
And now this is all over the world, and now it is becoming more popular. I can't take credit for me making that topic popular, but I'm going to take credit for it being it's out there. It's definitely, this semi is doing its share and its job, and this semi needs to continue.
That was Elizabeth Johnson talking about her truck and trailer and the message it delivers to those who see it. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. Stay tuned for more after this.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one, That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
What sort of advice would you give four-wheelers if you had the chance? One trucker recently did just that. You're listening to Landline Now, and I'm your host, Mark Redding. Welcome back to the program. The Kansas Department of Transportation recently published a blog by a trucker from Eureka, Kansas, in which the trucker explained what he sees on the road every day and offered some advice for the four-wheelers who might read his words. And as it turns out, that's a lot of people. More than 150,000 have read the blog, and it's been shared more than 600 times. We called trucker Ron Mayes to chat with him about his history in trucking, what he wrote, and what he sees out on the road. Ron Mayes is 59 and he's been driving for more than 30 years. His work includes agricultural freight, including some cattle, as well as construction, hauling asphalt and rock. He says that cars often operate as if they don't care about their own health and safety or that of other people using the highways.
Any trucking I've done, it just seems like when cars get around a semi, it's like they don't even know the semi's there. It's like they would drive that way if the truck wasn't even there. And I'm like, you people can't do that. I figured it up. 80 to 85% of the cars that pass me, if I'm in a semi, slow down, most of them will hit their brakes. Well, what are you doing that for? And I have to maintain following distance. And it's like my brother Mike says. He says, you got to maintain following distance. He said, better to have to back off a mile than end up on top of a car. So when they pass around you and they slow down like that, I just start backing off. And it's just amazing the advantages they take.
A lot of the problem, he says, is car drivers failing to understand that something the size of a semi cannot simply stop on a dime.
I always tell people that around trucks and their cars, I said, you got to understand, it's a study in physics. That's a lot of mass, motion, and density moving down the road. You cut us off, we can't stop that fast. And I tell them, and I said, you people need to be aware, especially milk tankers, fuel tankers, cattle trucks, anything with a fluid type load that moves around. It's, in my dad's day, it was the meat railers, the swinging beef. You've got to pay attention. Everybody needs to pay attention, and they're just not doing it.
For his part, Ron credits a lot of his knowledge of trucking to his father, and especially his brother.
My dad's been dead since '86. He had his own trucking company at one time, but when things went south in the 70s for trucking, hell, his deal kind of went with it. He built it with his own hands. It was too bad he lost it. I mean, my old man is quite a story. But my brother Mike's still driving. I learned some from Dad, but my dad got sick in his later years, and I learned a lot from my brother Mike. We're talking 3 million-mile safety awards without an accident. Mike's a very good driver. The main thing I learned from my dad and my brother, my dad always said, when you're driving a truck, he said, you got to do your job and at least 50% of the other guy that's passing around you. He always said, if you're not watching him close, things are going to happen, and then you're not going to react properly. So when you drive, drive. That's all you need to do. And it's helped me a lot.
In his blog, Ron offers some advice of his own. 3 basic things he says four-wheelers need to do. Stay off my back and don't tailgate. I can't see you. Stay off the phone when driving, especially around semis. And stay off my right side. I can't see you there either. He added that four-wheelers need to look further ahead than just whatever vehicle is in front of them.
My dad used to say, look way far ahead, as far as you can identify vehicles in the distance. He said, that's where you're going to need to stop. And he said, you need to be aware. He said, not just right off your front nose, but a long ways off. And he said, you need to keep an eye on everything. He was a real stickler for detail. He said, you've got to be able to identify far off. And I myself, I try to drive like that. You know, I try to see far enough ahead that I can tell that it's a semi, car, a pickup, you know, where I can see them And anticipate, my dad and my brother hammered this into me, anticipation. You need to anticipate before they do it, if you can, what they're going to do. Because it's a total concentration game. I mean, it wears on you. It's tiring, but you've got to, because they're not going to. They don't feel they have to.
He doesn't let truckers off the hook. He wrote, quote, "I know there are a few bad semi-drivers out there, some of whom have pulled in front of me going 65 miles per hour, way too close." However, Ron makes it clear that the bulk of the bad driving he sees is by four-wheelers. And during our conversation, Ron said that in his mind, if something goes wrong, truckers will still feel responsible even when they're not at fault.
Every day a driver gets in his truck, he has to live with the possibility that you may not see something quick enough when these idiots are doing this. And as a professional driver, I know myself, if I was to miss a car that cut me off or did something stupid and I run over them, even though it ain't my fault, I'm going to sit there and blame myself for the rest of my life, because what could I have done? Could I have done more? And it's sad, but they just, like I said in that letter, they just don't care. It's like you're not even there. And it's cars that cut you off, they got little kids in there. And it just, man, if I can't get it stopped, there's going to be a bunch of little kids get killed. And that ain't, that's just beyond terrible. I saw a man in a freight truck in Emporia, Kansas here a while back. It was raining. And he literally saved that lady's life. She pulled right out in front of him in a rainstorm. And that's what gets me. Four-wheelers need to learn pulling out in front of us at intersections. She pulled right out in front of him. I don't know how he got that truck stopped in the rain, but he did. And I'm sitting there watching it thinking, boy, he just saved her life. That's what we do. Truck drivers, good truck drivers, are saving lives every day. I've had deals where people cut me off. It was so close. I saved their life. They didn't even know it. So four-wheelers need to realize we can't stop those things that fast. Give us a little room. That's the main thing right there.
Mayes said a lot of the problems that he encounters could be improved simply by properly training car drivers to move safely around larger vehicles.
I don't know how you do it, but if maybe part of our driving courses anymore is if people that are four-wheeler drivers, if before they get their license, this is kind of an inconvenience for everybody, but maybe they should have to ride around in a truck with a real truck driver and see what it's like. I guess the Highway Patrol has done that some. They have an officer ride with a driver, just to see it from our perspective.
We'll have a link to Ron Mayes' blog on our website, landlinenow.com. If you want to make your voice heard on any of the issues we discuss on our show, you should call your representative or both of your senators in Washington, D.C. To call any member of Congress, all you have to do is dial the U.S. Capitol switchboard. That phone number is 202-224-3121. Provide the operator your zip code and they can connect you directly to the office of your senators and your U.S. congressman. Again, that phone number is 202-224-3121. Meanwhile, if you want to write a letter to your members of Congress or contact state lawmakers about an issue closer to home, you can do that through fightingfortruckers.com. Scroll down on the main page to where it says Find Officials and enter your zip code. The site will look up information for your federal and state elected officials, and you can also write a letter right there on the website to your members of Congress. You can also get contact information by calling the membership department here at OOIDA at 816-229-5791. Our program is produced by the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association, the only national organization representing the interest of professional truckers in Washington, D.C., in state legislatures, and with the regulatory agencies that deal with transportation and highway safety. That's our show for today. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad.
A son.
A husband.
Wife.
I'm a writer.
Photographer.
I farm. I'm a veteran.
I love old cars. Fishing.
My kids.
Chrome. And I am a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.